Elena Panaritis started her career as an economist at the World Bank, then came to INSEAD, and afterwards set up a social enterprise to help poor countries create property registries. Along the way, she also became a member of the Greek Parliament. So you presumably had this idea in your head when you were graduating. Did you then have to go out and raise money?
So when I graduated from INSEAD, I wrote my business plan. And I did what I call the walk of shame. I walked around in London and in New York. I had, I don't know, my projections. I had finally figured out it was. So the concept is we're establishing property rights, and we are establishing security of the rights on real estate in countries that they have it, but not in such a high level of assurance, if you wish. And you do make some very good financial returns. I had a prototype of measuring the social benefits and another one of measuring the environmental benefits. So I had with all these three, if you wish, balance sheets or projections, I was able to walk around and raise money, which I did in the end. But it was tough. It was very tough. First of all, I'm a female that has a bit of an accent and walks around these two major markets and was saying that, yeah, I'm the CEO of this newly founded company that does good and does well at the same time. And a lot of them would say, well, why don't you just go back to the World Bank? That was a tough reply.
Just as this was kind of taking off, you took a detour and became a Greek member of parliament. How did that happen?
I had just capitalized Panel Group after a long period of searching for the right investors, and I had signed all my contracts and papers, and I had already initiated the implementation of my work in a specific country that I'm working in, and which is not Greece, and it's not the United States. It's an Eastern European country. And then I said, okay, now it's time for me to rest for 2 weeks. So I go to Greece, and that's when my prime minister, who was running for elections, right before elections were called, the head of the socialists called George Papandreou, picked up the phone and called me and said, I'd like you to head the advisors list that are appointed in the parliament as members of parliament. There are a few people each party is allowed to have that are leading the ticket of the candidate as technical experts, internationally acknowledged, and so on. So he wanted me to lead that list.
What did you think when that offer?
Oh, I immediately thought that I'm not going to do that. This is like completely crazy. Of course, I was very, very honored. But he wasn't really getting a no for an answer. He was really trying very hard to engage me. I had not been in Greece for such a long time. And then I thought, maybe this is the calling. I've been working with so many other countries, trying to help so many other countries. So I decided to accept. And I got on a very long ride there, 3 years.
Okay, so lots of people who come to INSEAD like the idea of social entrepreneurship. You get to have fun, save the world, and you make money at the same time. Do you think you need different skills to be a social entrepreneur?
Yes, you need to have something more than you do need to be very, I'm sorry to use the word, but I am going to use it. You need to be very competitive, cutthroat. You need to know how to cut to the chase. You need to know when to very quickly cut your losses. You need to be very, 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 very tough, frankly. In my case, I negotiate with governments and local governments, but I bring private money, right? They think that possibly this is subsidies or grants, but it's private money. I need to return the money with the agreed return, and I have to make my contracts completely airtight. Let's say, your local government changes. How do you handle that? So you have to tie the contracts that you have and the agreements and the corporate agreements that you have in the very, very beginning in your negotiations, assuming the worst. And that's not the easiest thing to bring on the table when you're negotiating with a willing partner. He's not very happy to be told that, what if you're going to have a dictatorship in your country? No, but we're part of the European Union. We don't have a dictatorship in our country. I know it's a 1 in a trillion, possibility that this is going to happen, but I really need to make sure that if this will ever happen in our timeline, I would need to cover for it.
Let's say someone watching this has an idea for a social enterprise. They've seen some problem, they think they can fix it, they think they can make money while they fix it. How easy is it for someone to do that?
Well, it doesn't grow on a tree, right? So it depends on you fully. It depends on you. Okay, the tough part, it depends on you to hold on to your energy. I have to say, I spent a good 7 years working on this before getting into real, actual good money. But we are the first ones. That doesn't mean that every new social entrepreneur that comes out there will have to spend 7 years. Now there is a space, the language is there, people understand it. They don't look at you and say, oh, well, why don't you go work for the World Bank? Because the World Bank does only very partial things. When I worked at the World Bank, they were telling me, why don't you go work in the private sector? You don't really fit here. You're way too flexible. You're way too entrepreneurial. If I had you at the private sector, I wouldn't let you go away or anything like that. So really being in that space of a social entrepreneurship is somebody who doesn't completely fit in that public sector work, and doesn't also completely fit in the blue chip or in the IB, investment banking world. And it's not because there is something wrong with either of the two, it's because your personality is not completely fulfilled. There is always going to be, every night you go to bed, you're always going to be thinking, well, it's all perfect, I'm making a good salary, but something else is missing. And if you're willing to let go of that good salary for a little bit, so that something that is missing, it's actually now provided by your creation, is that what keeps you going?